Welcome back to the Toon Chat podcast. I'm your host, as always, Coleslaw, and I think I can say for all of us that most reboots of anything are pretty bad. Here's just a whole bunch of them that are just pretty atrocious, but today I'm going to be talking about 3 of the best cartoon reboots, and they're actually pretty dang good. And so let's just jump right into it with the first cartoon. The first show is a very beloved show made by Disney themselves, with DuckTales 2017, with the original coming out in 1987. You got that classic 1987 theme song, and it translates really well to the reboot, but the most improved thing that this reboot does is the writing. And specifically the writing when it comes to the comedy, because that is what it really excels at. In the humor department, it is absolutely laugh out loud funny. The writers on this show absolutely nailed it when it comes to the comedy aspects. Every single episode, you just find yourself belly laughing because the writing is just so funny with the Huey, Dewey, and Louie characters. Not only is the show's writing super good, but it also excels in the animation department because, you know, it's Disney. You got Disney grade animation, and the vocal cast is also very fantastic. Here's a look at some of the people. Absolutely fantastic people here. But if I had to complain about one thing, it's probably like the overarching story. It's kind of a little bit all over the place. It goes between season and season. Kind of comparable of Tangled the series. In fact, like one of the season finales of DuckTales is almost identical to the one of them in Tangled the series. It's kind of weird. They're both Disney, so it kind of makes sense. But anyway, really, this show was a good fit when it was airing at the same time as Amphibia and the Owl House, because it's really different. So it's a good contrast between those shows and this one. And I definitely think that this 2017 version is a big improvement over the 80s cartoon, which I didn't see because I was not even close to being born yet. But the characters in this one have so much more going for them. And back when you look at the 80s cartoon, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, they're all just the same duck with different colors. This one, they have their own personalities. It's really fun to watch. That being said, though, the old cartoon is absolutely beloved, as nostalgic as it is. But it is kind of stale because it's old. So if you want to watch DuckTales, I recommend watching the new one. And if I want to recommend a single Disney reboot at all, I'd probably go for DuckTales 2017. Here's just, look at all these other Disney remakes that they've made. They've made Lion King, Mulan, blah 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 blah. But this reboot is better than all those blockbuster movies, so give DuckTales a watch. And the next show you got is a Netflix original where you got it's Robin Hood, but more spy and more female. And then you put that together and you get Carmen Sandiego. The original came out in 1994. The reboot came out in 2019. It's this thief who uses her skills for good, like Robin Hood, and she travels the world to foil File's evil plans. And the one thing that the 2019 reboot does that improves from the original is the overall style of it all. Because it's totally different stylistically from any of the original stuff. And this show, out of the 3 I'm going to be talking about, has the best designs, I think, of the bunch. The show delivers this simple color palette, and the backgrounds are almost like this sticker, simplistic feel, but the colors are really dark and gloomy, but also really just fun to look at. And the character designs are sharp and fun, and it's just super duper appealing. And on top of that, the music, super fun. You got the theme song, it's classic. It's that mystery type vibe. Super fun aspect for the show. The voice acting is great. Carmen does a great job. And there's a whole bunch of underrated actors in this cartoon, and it just makes it come to life. The action is always top notch and it's super fun to look at. The world building, this show literally builds the world as Carmen goes all over the place. And when the story focuses on Carmen and her journey with Vile and her parents, that's when it's really good. But it's not as good when it just kind of goes with the flow and just another mystery after another mystery. But when it focuses on that Carmen Sandiego story, that's when you want to pay attention. And you cannot talk about the 2019 Carmen Sandiego reboot without talking about that pilot. The first episode of this reboot is fantastic. One of the best pilots of a show that I've ever seen. Not counting Hazbin Hotel because that's just in a league of its own, but yeah. And then the ending is also really good as it caps off the Carmen Sandiego story. So it's like, imagine like a sandwich with like elite pieces of bread. The inside's like, okay, but the bread, that bread. But speaking of the stuff in the middle, Season 3 is absolutely crappy. Skip Season 3, go 1, 2, and 4, and then that's it. Season 3 is just atrocious. I don't know what the heck happened in Season 3. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But definitely gives Carmen Sandiego a watch, especially if you remember playing the old games back in the day. And now for the final reboot, my favorite of the bunch. It's probably like my 5th favorite show of all time. It is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Came out in 2017. The OG came out in 1985. That's a long time ago. So it's basically about an orphan named Adora leaving behind her former life in the evil horde, and then she transforms with this magic sword to be She-Ra. Awesome. And the thing that this show improves in, based off the original, is the story. The story in the reboot is absolutely fantastic, and that is a big part of Noelle Stevenson getting hold of this show. Noelle Stevenson took that 80s cartoon, which was pretty much only made to sell merchandise to a female audience who liked He-Man, because this is She-Ra, but it's a girl version of He-Man for toys, but she just took it and rolled with it. The story gets super duper good whenever it's focusing on the Horde and or Catra and Adora's relationship, because Catra is awesome and it's just super fun to watch. And that is when the show really shines and you should pay attention. The show does have a bit of a slow start, as season 1 is kind of trying to find its footing a little bit too slowly, but it does pick up the pace a little bit and things start heating up when you get to seasons 3 and 4. In addition to the story, the cast of characters is absolutely fantastic. Everyone's super fun. The best friend squad's great. The other princesses are great. And the scene stealers here, you gotta give it to Shadow Weaver and Double Trouble. There's like super fun additional characters who you always love when they're on screen. I could do without Swiftwind though. It doesn't have to exist. It's just like a pony head, but with the entire body. That's literally all Swiftwind is. And She-Ra somehow has more ships in it than Star Versus, which is incredibly difficult to do. And some of them are great, like Catra, like I mentioned. Bow and Glimmer is great, and Angela and Micah is also pretty dang good. But there's just so many ship relationships in this show. It is bonkers. Which is fine for the ones that are like drawn out, but there's just so many in there that are forced or don't add to the story, and that's just, you don't really need that. Like Bo's dad's not really important. The Horde trio, okay. Natasha and Spinnerella don't really add much. There's nothing really wrong with them. They're just added for the sake of being added. They're not drawn out, and there's just not very interesting. But aside from the characters, this show is DreamWorks. It's all DreamWorks animation, so it's very solid. But what keeps you coming back is that fantastic story that you get with like Lord Prime, and when you get to season 4, and things just really start to get good with She-Ra and She-Ra's past lives. It gets super duper deep and rich, and that's what keeps you going. And that is why this show is just so good. It's like my number 5 show. So I think you should definitely check out She-Ra and the Princesses of Power out of any of the shows I've mentioned today. So yeah, those are the 3 best cartoon reboots in my opinion. Cartoon reboots can either be really good or not so good. And these are the good ones at least. But anyway, transitioning from that, let's get to everyone's favorite segment. What the dump happened last month? And I'll just say that last month, we got a heck more Amphibian the Owl House, because things really started to get moving in those 2 shows. Especially in Amphibia, for example. We got the finale of Season 3 really starting to get good. King Andreas taking over Earth and stuff like that. I'm not going to get too into detail of what happens, but it starts really heating up and starts to get really good. And then Owl House continuing pumping out the great content. It's one of the best shows available right now. So if you want to watch a show currently that's happening as we speak, that's the one to check out. But I just talked about that show last month, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But luckily, we did get a new season of a show that's over on HBO Max, so I'm going to talk about that right now. And that show is none other than Close Enough. This is a show that was made by the one and only J.G. Quintel of Regular Show, and this season got 8 new episodes, so I'm going to go ahead and rank those for you. And this is just such a great adult animated show, so before I rank these, you should just go watch them, rank them yourself, and then come back and see if we match. That'll be fun, won't it? So let's just give you my list right now. In 8th place, you got the finale, episode 8, I believe. It's just not the strongest. And then 7th place, episode 1. 6th place, episode 6. 5th place, episode 2. 4th place, episode 3. 3rd place, episode 4. 2nd place, episode 5. It just kept getting better, apparently. But then the 1st place episode is that 7th episode, the Halloween special. That one's super fun as we get callbacks to Regular Show and stuff. It is just a blast to watch. So, are your rankings similar to mine? I don't know. Maybe. This show is just an absolute blast because you got a Quintel on it who made Regular Show, and this is just like matured a little bit, and it kind of makes you want to revisit Regular Show because it's just such a fun style that Quintel puts onto stage here. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this show. I would kind of wish more shows were story driven by J.G. Quintel, because he really did get Regular Show getting story driven when they went to space, especially. So maybe, Close Enough will get story driven as it gets more and more seasons, because Regular Show got a crap ton of seasons. It went on forever. So, maybe we'll see more story driven stuff by Quintel in the future. Wouldn't that be nice? So from talking about 3 reboots, talking about a show made by a creator who's making his secondary project, it's all coming together so beautifully. But that's all the time I have for today. So thank you for tuning in to another Toon Chat podcast, and I will see you all next time. See ya.